Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and retro game prices will probably not change in 2025. A lot of people have been waiting and hoping and wishing and praying, including myself, that we would see some sort of bubble burst when it comes to the inflated prices of retro games. It's something that we've been asking for pretty much since the end of, I want to say, 2022. Maybe even earlier that, maybe mid 2021, when some of these games reach their peaks in terms of price and in terms of just, what people were charging for some of these games. And so here we are in 2025. We are officially 5 years out from 2020. It's a whole new world out there when it comes to retro game hunting, when it comes to sourcing retro video games. And a lot of people are still, wondering and hoping and waiting to see when these retro game prices will drop. And I think that waiting for retro game prices to deflate or have this massive drop, I think is an exercise in futility. I think it's a waste of time because I don't think that we are going to see these price drops happen anytime soon. And this is for a lot of reasons, right? A lot of reasons. For one, I think you would have to have a large number of sellers selling some of these games at the same exact time to see the massive drop in prices that I think a lot of people are looking for. There are not millions and millions of copies of retro games being sold at one particular time. In fact, depending on the game, you'd be lucky to see even one copy of that game being sold anywhere online. And so when there's only one, two, even 10 copies of a game being sold throughout the entire world, it's not enough supply to really have that type of drastic effect. So I do not think that we are going to see that type of a price drop when it comes to retro games, simply because of the fact that I don't think there will ever be enough of these games being sold at the same time for the price to drop. What I do think may happen is you might see incremental, very incremental decreases in price depending on how many of a certain game is being sold at the same time. We've seen this happen with some retro games more than others. I'll give you an example. You have a game like Drakengard 2. So Drakengard 2 at the height of the pandemic was a almost $200 game. This game was going for somewhere in the neighborhood of 180, and now this might be a $60 game, maybe a $70 game. And I think that was because of the amount of copies of this game being sold. It's a lot of people have put this up for sale over time, and so we've seen the price on this game drop significantly. But then when you look at a game like God Hand is still has held its value. Even through the pandemic. Now, don't get me wrong, it was still a lot more expensive during the time of pandemic, just like most of these games were. But a game like God Hand has held its value. Same thing with Def Jam Fight for New York. These are games that have not seen the type of plummet in value that you would see with a game like Drakengard. And I think it's just, again, it goes back to supply and demand. Also, I don't think a lot of people are really looking for a game like Drakengard as much as they are looking for games like God Hand and Def Jam Fight for New York. Why do you say that, Y2K Collector? Well, I say that because Def Jam Fight for New York and God Hand offer very unique gaming experiences. There aren't a lot of games that you will play that will feel or play a lot like God Hand. With Def Jam Fight for New York, maybe you could say Def Jam Vendetta might give you the same type of feeling that you would get from a Def Jam Fight for New York. But a game like God Hand is very unique. There's not a lot of games out there like it. And when it comes to games like Drakengard 2, you've got a lot of games that can kind of give you that action RPG, hack and slash kind of feel, especially on a console like the PlayStation 2. So I think a lot of it is really going to be dependent on what game you're talking about. And again, the demand and how many people want those games. Now, you do have some games, like when it comes to games like Pokemon Gale of Darkness or Path of Radiance, these are games that have high visibility, A lot of people know about these games. A lot of people have been seeking these games and been wanting to add some of these games to their collections for quite some time. So while that allure is still on those types of games, I think those games will continue to hold their value. But you know, it doesn't mean that we can't see a dip. It doesn't mean that it's absolutely impossible for prices to drop in 2025. I just don't think that there will be this bursting of the bubble that people are looking for. I think gone are the days where you can walk into a store and buy GameCube games for $5. You're never going to get back to a $5 GameCube game or anything like that ever again. I think those days are gone. And if you're looking for games that are like $5 and stuff like that, your best bet is going to be to look towards the 360, which even at this point, a lot of the good 360 games have crazy, like just inflated in price, especially last year. I mean, Fist of the North Star Ken's Rage 2 went from being a $40 game to almost, you know, a $200 game. I don't know where this game has settled at now. Maybe it's settled at 150, maybe 175. But this is a game that, thanks to delisting, has, you know, skyrocketed into the stratosphere, and we don't know if a game like this is ever going to come back down. So I think it all depends on what consoles you're looking at, what games you're looking at, you know, to really know what types of decreases we're going to see in price. Now, the one console that I will say shockingly has dropped in price like all across the board. We've definitely seen a dip in the price of 3DS games. And I would say all across the board, 3DS game prices, sorry, not 3DS, but DS, and I guess you could throw 3DS in there as well, but DS prices and 3DS prices have definitely gone down, and they've steadily gone down over time. I remember DS prices were kind of, you know, they were kind of up there for some of these games, but a lot of them have dropped. You know, games like Tokyo Beatdown. Tokyo Beatdown was a very expensive game. Monster Tale at one point was an expensive game. You've got games like Commando Steel Disaster, which is still an expensive game, but it was even more expensive. The Castlevania games at one point, you know, Portrait of Ruin, Dawn of Sorrow, Order of Ecclesia, those were all pretty expensive games at one point. Thanks to the re-release of those games on the Switch, they've definitely seen a drop in price. But across the board, I mean, we've definitely seen a decrease in the price of some DS games. But then you've got consoles like the original PlayStation, where a lot of the original PlayStation games are continuing to steadily hold their value, but it just depends on the game. So why do I bring this up, or why do I even mention or talk about this? I'm talking about it because there's still a lot of people who are interested in getting into collecting for physical retro video games, but they're kind of waiting. They're like, well, I'll wait till the price drops a little bit more. Do I think that prices will drop drastically across the board? No, but I do think that if you're interested in a particular console or collecting particular games, you may want to start doing your research and start looking at price trends to see if it's worth waiting any longer or if you need to just bite the bullet and get the game. But let me know what you think down in the comments. It's the Y2K Collector. I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy.